Our first speaker tonight is Dave Jones, who's also the co-ringleader here tonight. You'll hear him talking a little bit later. He has our first story tonight. Dave, A Child's Voice.
When I was 5 years old, I recall sitting in Sunday school class. If you had been there with me, you would have seen a small classroom with 7 or 8 children and our teacher, Miss DeWitt. We were seated on small metal chairs, and there was a scent of fresh apple juice in the air, waiting on a nearby table for the children after the lesson concluded. There was a nervous energy in the room. It was typical for a room filled with kids. You would have heard Miss DeWitt as she read the Bible verse that was to be our lesson for the day. Miss DeWitt spoke clearly and said, in the book of Timothy, chapter 4, verse 12, it says, "Be bold. Do not let anyone look down on you for being a child. Set an example for others. Let them learn from you." As a young, impressionable boy, I believed if I lived my life the way these words suggested, I could be a superhero. Sadly, that never came to be true. As a child, you see, I often felt that when I spoke to adults, they saw me, but they looked right through me. How could that be? Didn't the words in the Bible mean anything to these adults? I would sometimes think to myself, can't adults listen and learn from me? Don't they see my example? Don't they see me being bold? Frankly, I've struggled with this lesson and understanding it for the better part of my life, almost 6 decades now. As an adult and then a father, I now believe, no, let me correct that. I now know that children can be a teacher. They can be bold, and they can set examples. Now, you might be saying to yourself, a child be a teacher? Who's this guy kidding? A child setting an example for others? Children don't have enough life experience. Is this Dave Jones guy really serious? Now, I understand that might sound a bit ridiculous to you. However, it happened to me. Let me tell you about my experience. I was having dinner in a small family-owned restaurant. The place had maybe 8 or 10 tables, room for about 20 or 25 guests. I had to use the restroom. I entered and the lavatory was kind of small, not surprising for a place of that size. There was a toilet, a urinal, and a sink. From outside the restroom door, I heard a voice of a child say loudly, "I can do it myself, Daddy. You stand guard here at the door like a good Marine, okay?" A moment later, bam! The door burst open and in walks a little boy. Now, this kid reminded me of Ralphie from the movie A Christmas Story. He had the blonde hair and the big black rim glasses, blue eyes, and a warm smile that would melt your heart. And he looked up at me and said, "Hi, my name's Jackson, and that's Jax, son. What's your name?" "I'm Dave." And he spoke again and said, "Hey, Dave, do you got to go number 1 or number 2? A little shocked, I said, "Well, I'm going to do number 1. And he said, "Good, because I got to go and I got to make a duty." I moved to the urinal to do my business, and I stared straight ahead, as men do in public restrooms. A little insight for you ladies in the audience. Unlike what might happen in your restrooms, men don't speak to one another. We don't. It's just not done. Out of the corner of my eye as I stood there, the stall was right next to me, and I saw the shadow of Jackson's feet kind of dancing on the floor. He was swinging his feet back and forth with a nervous energy that would be common for a little boy sitting on the toilet. From under the wall, I heard him say, "Hey, Dave, how old are you?" 59. Standing in total silence for a moment, I was again struck by the directness of this young boy, and I thought to myself, wow, is this kid bold or what? A few moments more of silence passed, and then I heard Jackson say, 59? That's pretty old. I'm 5. Again, a few moments of silence, and then Jackson spoke. "Hey, Dave," with a little bit of nervousness in his voice, "what song do you sing when you can't go?" I replied, "I don't sing in restrooms, Jackson." "Oh, okay." An instant later, from behind the wall, I heard these lyrics erupt. "From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli." I snickered to myself, and then I spoke up and said, "Hey, Jackson, was your daddy in the Marines?" And he replied, "Yeah, how did you know?" "Just a lucky guess," I commented. I hit the flush bar and started to move to the sink. But before I could even leave, I heard these words, "You better be washing your hands." Now, I promise you, I was going to wash my hands. I just hadn't got to the sink yet. And then Jackson shouted, "And you better be using soap." At the sink and my hand washing complete with soap, I then heard, pow! The stall door opens and out toddles Jackson. "Hey, Dave, watch this. I can zip up my pants and not get anything caught." Jackson did what might best be described as a cross between jumping up and down and spinning in a circle. And he finally got his zipper up. He completed that task, and then he paused for a moment as if he had forgotten something, and then sprinted back into the toilet. And then I heard whoosh, at which Jackson reemerged, and he spoke again. "Hey, Dave, here's an important lesson. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down." Jackson quickly moved to the sink and paused just a moment to let some water momentarily run over his hands and wet them. And then as he raced toward the exit, he shouted, "Hey, Dave, thanks for being kind and listening to a kid. Bye." Just outside the lavatory door, I heard Jackson shout to his dad, who had been standing there the entire time, "Okay, soldier, let's move out. I've got some French fries waiting for me at the table." And then my young friend was gone. I thought about this moment for some time, and the words of the late Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood came back to me, and I think they captured it really well. Fred Rogers said, "Listening is where learning and love begins. Listening to ourselves and listening to our children." Although my encounter with Jackson was brief, he had finally taught me the lesson that had eluded me from my Sunday school with Miss DeWitt. The lesson from the first book of Timothy, chapter 4, verse 12. What was so important about it, and why is this important now? It's important because, cliche as it might sound, Children are the future. Who are the children in your life? Are you listening to them? I know what I've learned is that I need to be more attentive and listen to children because I can learn from them. Because every child can be a teacher in a child's voice. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.